Welcome. My name is Johanna Hilla, and I'm the coordinator of education and training at Vital Psychedelics today. And it is my honor and privilege to host two incredible women for our Vital Psychedelic Conversations podcast today. So, just so you know, Vital Psychedelic Conversations is a platform where we bring together our students and our teachers to discover many interesting subjects around psychedelics. And our today's guests are our student Monica Nieto, who I will give a little bit more of an introduction in a moment, and one of our teachers, Jordana Grader. So I'm really looking forward to our discussion. We're going to be delving into hopefully many topics around um, teaching spirituality, psychedelic education, plant medicine, indigenous wisdom, and the combination of different spiritual practices and how one can implement them best in their work and also in one's personal life. So, yeah, just to give a little bit more of an introduction, and then I will let Monica and Jordana both go a little bit further into their own story. I met Monica during our very first year of Vital. She's a student from our first year who got to have the experience of the first initial cohort. And Monica has excuse me, MA in psychology from Pepperdine University and a background in business administration. And she's also the founder and a CEO of Holistics Therapeutics based in LA, who now has also collaborated with Psychedelics Today on putting together some retreats. So I will let Monica to go further into her business and her past and the points which have brought her to here. But it's been so lovely knowing Monica. We've been together on a number of retreats, and it's always been such a pleasure to share space with you. And then we have Jordana, who is specialized in so many things that it's going to take me a while to get through them. But we've been very fortunate to have Jordana to teach for our second cohort of Vital on ecopsychology and on group ceremony. So Jordana has done incredible work, especially in ecopsychology, combining her knowledge of herbs, rituals, rites of passage, and indigenous ways of knowing. And she also uses Hakomi, somatic body-oriented psychotherapy, sensory motor psychotherapy, and psychosynthesis, as well as IFS and Jungian approaches in her work. And she also has background in shamanism, Panyan yoga, and uses different forms of spiritual inquiry. So I'm looking forward to having a very what I imagine to be a very profound hour with these two incredible women. And I'm going to kick this thing off by asking you both a question, which I hope you can take as a gateway into us learning a little bit more about you. So, how did you? Let's go ahead and start with you, Monica. How did you come into the world of plant medicine? And what was or what were the key turning points in your life that have led you where you are now?
Well, thank you, Joanna, and thank you for that question. It's a really interesting question to answer. It's a long one too, but in my culture, and I am born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, in South America. Um, we have generation through generation healed with plants. Now, when I was a child, I remember my mother. If I have tummy ache, if I have anything, if I have a cold, she will bring some sort of tea, a herbal tea, and drink it, and that was it. Until really we are really sick, we will go to the doctor. But unless it's not very urgent, we will not go to the doctor. So or take any medication. So we will try healing with plants before anything else. So it's part really of my culture, about healing with plants and for me, after later I grow up. I uh, traveled to Europe and traveled to other places, and I kind of disconnected from my own roots for a while. And 5 years ago, I did started my healing journey with psychedelics, and surprisingly, my healing journey with psychedelics started with MDMA, which is, not really what I was looking for, but um, it was meant to be. I was in the desert. I wanted to try MDMA after a long time. I didn't have any drugs in the past. I did really abuse drugs in the past a lot. In my 20s, I used a lot of MDMA, cannabis, name it, cocaine, alcohol, a lot of alcohol. So later in life, when I married, had kids, I um, passed through something different. And 5 years ago, I got in touch with MDMA in a certain setting that it was extremely magical in the desert, in the Joshua Tree Desert. And that experience, even though I was not looking for any healing, it changed my life because it reconnected me to my spirituality. And it's something that was, kind of in a box, like hidden somewhere. And it's like it's there, but it's there but not there. So that awakened me to that. And then, I started my search about, what happened to me. This is, I couldn't explain. And this unity consciousness that happened, and the spirituality that came through that. So later on, I came across psychedelics today, um, looking for answers 5 years ago. And then I did the navigating psychedelics, and I started searching for answers. And something in me wanted really to experience the, ayahuasca, especially. And even though I was very afraid to do that, because for me, I have a family, nobody in my circle will do anything like that. But it was very intuitive in my way. It's like, I have to do this somehow. So um, I took the leap. I went to Peru. I did ayahuasca, wachuma, and other medicines. And that really was it. I really reconnected to my roots, to who I am, to where I come from, to my truth. And it was pretty powerful. I really found amazing people in Peru that I still have contact with them today, and I will have always. Beautiful, beautiful people, human beings, um, that treat medicine and follow the medicine path in a very, very respectful way. And I have been learning from them a lot, from my ayahuasca amazing woman, who her name is Leticia Siu, and she has been studying medicine for a long time with Colombians, Venezuelans, Mexico, and back in Peru. So very grateful for her and her teaching. So once I met the first time with the medicine, and this was a really, really difficult experience I had, but it was very transformational, because it really teach me, like, this is your truth, and you have to stand up with your truth. This is where you come from. I have been running from it, going from Europe, and find a French husband, and yes, Europe, it's part of my culture as well, in a way. The European uh, conquer South America, and it's also part of me. But I kind of rejected my Latino roots and my African roots as well. And the medicine helped me to reconnect with it. So I don't know if I'm being too long, but but that was it. After that, I started. Working on my own healing path, on my own healing process. And that process once you start walking the way will start to appear. That's the same. And I really found my path through plant medicines. And I experienced other medicines, wachuma, mushrooms, of course, and then of course the beautiful cannabis sativa, which is another story. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I guess what struck me when I first met you was that I really thought that you would have been in the plant medicine world much longer than you actually have been, because you've got this such a presence, and I feel like it like you being in this space and also now stepping more into the role of guiding and facilitating makes so much sense, as knowing you from the little that I do. So yeah, for me it really kind of clicks to hear that you say that like ayahuasca was the sort of like opening to you also connect more with your heritage and to kind of find this new kind of path in life. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And then let's move on to you, Jordana. So the same question to you. So how did you come into the world of plant medicines? And looking back, what were or what was the key turning point or points that led you to this place where you are at now?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, I actually like to respond to this question with when I first got into plant medicines was when I accidentally ate some psilocybin in my early 20s when I was a baby 20. Yeah. And I love to share that part because I think a lot of people are like, "What? Oh no, that's terrible." And I'm like, "No, it was the best thing that ever happened to me." Um, I was at that time already like quite a yoga practitioner. I was in meditation practices, but I also was working out a lot of my own, we would call it like little T traumas, and a lot of the struggles from my earlier life. I mean, I had a wonderful family, but just the kind of trauma that we all incur through the modern American lifestyle and through ancestral wounding and all of that. So so by the time I got to my early 20s, I was actually having like a really hard time, and I was, I would consider myself kind of like a lost girl in a lot of ways, looking for connection and comfort in the wrong places. And I was, yeah, at my boyfriend's house at the time, and I ate some chocolates, and he came home 30 minutes later and was like, "Oh no, those that has psilocybin in it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well," and it just blessed be how the universe orchestrated. He's like, "Well, I'll hang out with you and I'll make sure that you're okay." And it completely 180'd my life in all the best ways. It gave me this connection into a sense of self, like of source and self that I had never encountered before. It cleared my mind for the first time in my entire life. After that, I didn't touch any of these other substances that I was using. I didn't even touch coffee after that for like 6 months. I was just purely cruising on the bliss of my own being for the next 6 months or so. And so it was such a gift from the universe and from the spirits of nature to put that in front of me. And I really think that the intelligence of the mushrooms was like, "Hey, we'll help you. Come take some of this, please." So that's really where my journey started, and from there, I left college actually, and I moved to California. And when I got to California, it was really soon that I met a friend who was like, I've noticed you really have a relationship with mushrooms, and you like to just do that meditatively. Well, you would really like these ceremonies. And that was my first introduction to ayahuasca ceremonies, working with a woman who had studied in Peru, but she also had, I hope this is all okay to share, but she, also had a lot of training in psychotherapy. And so that, started to really show me the power of being able to bring these two perspectives together, the traditional perspective and psychotherapy. So I asked, how do I learn more about that? And I went to Peru. I started going to Peru, and I first went to a place that was an internet place for international people, and it was great, but it wasn't really what I was looking for. So I just started to ask questions and get to know the environment, get to know people from there. I ended up at a little hut with this one woman who was 88 years old. She, I think she may have been making up that number, to be honest, because she was 88 for a really long time. But she, she, it was her and these two other guys, and we just worked with the plants. And she was mestizo, and we just worked with the plants for several months, and that was my first trip for several months in Peru, and I just felt called to come back. And so I like to say my path was really through like a series of micro decisions. It wasn't like a big, aside from my first accidental journey, like it wasn't a big message from the stars that descended upon me, but there may have been lots of tiny messages from the stars that kept coming and kept coming. And I ended up after that first trip to Peru for 3 months in 2012. I went every just started going every year for 3 to 6 months, and it just felt like the right thing to do. And I did things, sold my car, and people, like, I was so lucky and privileged to receive gifts from people at times, from grandma and things like that. That always enabled me to start spending this big chunk of time every year in Peru. And so every year I would go into Dieta, and I was guided to a teacher that I'm working with now, early on. And that was a little bit of a messengers from the sky, told me about this teacher and how to get there. That might be a different story. And it was just through, like, year by year, like, deepening and going again and bringing it back and integrating it into my life in the States. And, then that was not always easy, encountering integration challenges, and letting my life change, letting my relationships heal, and then I would go back to the jungle, and I would diet some more for, it's like 3 months at a time, which is actually quite a bit of dieting. It's a lot of internal change at once. And I'd come back, and I would digest that, and, um, that that just kept leading to the next step, to the next step, to the next step, and then I started taking other groups to Peru, and that felt really guided. It just felt like the plants were saying, "This would be good for you, like, this would help sustain your practice, and, you could share this place that you love so much." So I started taking groups to Peru, and to this day, I continue to do that. I spend about, a quarter of my life in Peru, and I am in Dieta for most of that time. And then when I come back, I start to organize things to bring groups back down to Peru, and to get to have that experience of traditional medicine and connection with nature and connection with the sacred that I feel is something that we've lost a lot of touch in the pace of the modern world. And so I'm really, really grateful to get to offer that.
Thank you, Jordana. Yeah, wonderful to hear a little bit more of a background into your story, and I can already observe a lot of similarities between you two. The kind of sort of almost an accidental stumbling into the plant medicine world, especially for you, Jordana. I mean, by eating mushroom chocolates by accident and then having a kind of a massive internal transformation. I mean, that definitely seems like orchestrated by by somebody or something out there. Um, and then sort of like gradually, step by step, sort of going into the world of ayahuasca and actually having dietas and finding your footing and path there. So yeah, really fascinating to hear from you both. And actually, what you just sort of hinted at there last, Jordana, leads me to my next question to you both, which is, as you both kind of spoke to this a little bit more of an intentional or purposeful way in which it seems that you have both been guided into this work, and as you mentioned, Jordana, for yourself, the kind of like little bits and bobs about your own spiritual practice. As I know, for you, Jordana, especially, you have quite a few things, like you mentioned yoga, and now there has been this work with ayahuasca. You're also experienced with meditation. I know you, Monica, also have quite a few years under your belt practicing a few of these. So yeah, my next question for you both is that how has your own spiritual practice informed your work currently, and how has it evolved? And yeah, what does it look like today? And either one of you can go first.
I can go. Um, so for me, it has been also like going into a ladder. It's like going into different stages and discovering different things through the way. Um, I think the medicine journeys that I had done, every single one of them, with different medicines and especially with Aya, will show me, what are my powers. It will show me, hey, this is it. Now, how do I integrate it into my daily life? And then is when you have to work for it, right? The medicine shows you what you can do, and then, okay, now put it in practice, right? So, one of the most amazing spiritual practice that I do every day is singing. And singing for me is a prayer, is self-expression, is also the vibration of the voice that is in my body. So it's a somatic practice. I feel it through the whole being in my bones. It's not about achieving perfection, but it's about feeling every sound that's going out of my mouth with melody and rhythm. Um, I started to play the maracas, which is something that I love doing, and singing at the same time. So that's a meditation for me. Every time I sing, I feel present. I feel here right now in my songs, in my voice, in also in the vibration, and even in the lyrics. That I am normally, I love singing in Spanish, but I also love singing in native language, which I have learned through my coach, Leticia, and I love it. It's part of my spiritual practice. I also do meditation. I use Hape. It's a very beautiful companion that I use, for meditation as well. Um, I do yoga, Kundalini yoga. I don't practice as often as I should, but I love doing that, especially because the breathing, the mantras, it's kind of similar practice as what I do, but um, use a different modality. But also when I sing, I practice breath work because some songs really need the breathing and the voice. So I'm practicing a pranayama that is helping me with my voice as well. So it's a whole different world that I am practicing since the last 2 3 years, but it's in stages. Like I get a little thing going and then a little thing going and then singing in my circles as well. So it's part of also my spiritual development. Like, okay, it's not about being perfect, but it's just about being me. authenticity, right? So yeah, I will say that it's most important. And prayer, of course, the power of prayer.
Hmm, beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Just remembering how you shared this song last time when we sat on the circle, it was so beautiful. And yeah, I think it's so much of spiritual practice is really about connecting also some of the most authentic parts of ourselves. So at least I think that's what it should be about to some degree. Yeah, thank you so much. What about you, Jordana?
Thank you for that, Monica. So for me, the whole path is about the spiritual practice. A lot of people ask me because I do sing as part of the lineage and I sing for healing. They ask me, do you love singing? And like, how is singing developed for you? And for me, I'm like, it's not about singing though; it's about yoga. And that, it's just my personal experience. Um, it it the path with the plants and any traditional medicine, I think, really is a yoga practice, and that shamanism as a whole and all the shamanic practices that we engage in, whether it be with entheogenic plants or whether it be with breath work or however we access that, it is a development of our energetic bodies in a way such that we can stabilize the access to deeper, more coherent, more unified states of our own consciousness. There is a developmental path to it. There is a progress to it, but every step in that path is the most important thing you can be doing at this moment. So it's not that later in that path is better than where you are now. It's all a practice of learning to be with exactly what is happening right now. And so the um, the the way that people train, for those that don't know, the way people train in the Amazonian tradition in Southeast Peru, in this particular vein of with the way of holding the ayahuasca, is through going into a dieta. And the dieta involves going into, in the way that it's held in this particular area, going into isolation and eating a very strict diet and of maybe just rice, like rice and beans, no oil, no salt, and you are during that time you're drinking a concentrate of a certain tree, like one particular tree that's not psychotropic at all, but the conditions, all these conditions start to expand your consciousness and make you very sensitive. You're in silence for a long time. That in itself makes you really sensitive. No salt makes a big deal. And then on top of that, you're drinking ayahuasca every few days. So you have this really an interesting set of conditions, but really what you're doing is a meditation retreat. And for me, that is why I do this practice, really. Like, I do this practice so that I can go have these experiences of having these extended meditation retreats in nature. These like multi-month meditation retreats in nature where there is a holding container held by my maestro, but I'm gone. I'm like I'm like off in the woods. Um, and really getting to tap into stillness and really getting to tap into the starting to learn from my own inner organicity is the word that I use, the self-organizing function in my own being, the wisdom of my own being. It's really getting to tap into that, learning to trust that, learning to cultivate that, and that becomes my true teacher, even though I am there with my teacher, my external teacher, Juan. Um, Even to the extent that, I enjoy the meditation so much that during the pandemic, I couldn't go to Peru, and I still just went out in the redwood forest for a couple months, which was one of the most amazing experiences I've had in all my training, to just do this wilderness isolation retreat and to connect with the redwoods. And I was dieting redwood during that time too, but but really it is like the meditation and all of the aspects connected in the eight limbs of yoga, of what we know as the yoga path, are like that is the juice of the practice for me. That is that, and the plants are allies in that, and the plants are teachers of this path of developing our own. I would say like our spirituality, but for me, it's really, really pragmatic. It's like, why would we do that? Because that's helping me to understand what my life is about on earth. And it's giving me a sense of meaning and also helping me to see reality clearly so that my life can be enjoyable and peaceful and harmonious. So it's really, really practical for me, really pragmatic. It's about like health and getting along with other people.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you talk about ayahuasca as a, or Dietas specifically as a kind of a yogic tradition. And that was actually my next question for you. And also, Monica, if you have any thoughts, feel free to chime in because you've got such extensive training in so many different areas of Western psychological traditions. And then you've got the whole yogic path that you actually started already in your early 20s. And then obviously in your later life, you've delved very deep into the various in I guess various indigenous traditions, or just with one lineage specifically. I don't remember
My
this one.
yeah, my focus with the most time has been with just the Ashaninka lineage.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you. Um, but so and I love what you said about spiritual practice being essentially about just being able to deal best with what we have ongoing in our present moment. um, but so the question that I have for you is like, how have you been able to synthesize all of these different ways of learning into kind of a coherent whole that makes sense for you? Um, and like, what are the sort of like guiding red threads that unite them for you personally?
Yeah, I love that question. Um, for me, the question of unification of all those threads is simply that there's one teacher, and that one teacher is inside of me already. And and so all of these other frameworks are things that I found along the way that I'm like, if I could get the details of how that's working, that's reflecting something I know already inside myself. Like, for example, Hakomi is a great example. Like, I was starting to experience in my own inner knowing, there's something about the importance of the body. There's something in when we do healing, there's something about the importance of I want to experience it now. Like Hakomi is a very experiential practice, a very experiential psychotherapy. There's something about, for me, the big one was there's something about systems theory and how the psyche is moving in the psyche organizes itself in the same way that the ecology does. And we can describe that using the set of understandings called general systems theory. And through my own explorations of like, does somebody else think this way? Does somebody else think that's wrong? Through my own explorations of like feeling through these ideas that I have, these intuitions. In that case, I stumbled upon Gregory Bateson, and I stumbled upon Ron Kurtz, and I met people who had done that kind of training. And so that's just one example of how the universe met my remembering. I started to remember something inside of myself of this this feels like this is true to my experience of how reality is. I'm not completely sure about that yet, but the universe starts to respond in that way by showing me a bunch of different perspectives that will mirror what I think I know internally and help me to clarify that. And it's been like that with all sorts of different things. I did a master's at CIES. I don't know if we talked about that too. And there's so I have a master's in transpersonal psychology and ecopsychology from there. And really, it's just like, I've found these containers because I really enjoyed education, I enjoyed research, I enjoyed that environment very much. But it's all just like it's this playground where I'm having my direct experience, and then the universe is responding by showing me a bunch of teachers. And that might take the form of a book, an article, a person, a class, a course. And I'm taking the approach of I'm just exploring, like, how does this make sense in my reality? And so does that make sense? Like, it's not necessarily, there have definitely been times when I have uh, read a book, read another book, and I'm like, how do I put those ideas together and synthesize them? But I think when we're talking about wisdom traditions and things like therapy and medicine work, that there's no comparison, that there's no comparison to what our lived experience is, because when we're working with people and healing traditions, what we're doing is we're working with consciousness. We're working with what reality is, and so we have to let reality be our teacher, and that we have to let consciousness and our own consciousness be our first laboratory.
Yeah, I love that. It for me, it makes perfect sense. It's I really I guess in the Western world we oftentimes think about this in this very simplistic and categorical way. I mean, even like way in which people label somebody as like a Jungian or somebody's a Freudian, or it's just like you're only allowed to use one lens of reality, and that's it, and you have to belong with those people then, and and I think what we really need more of is this kind of combination of different ways of viewing reality that actually really complement one another. And it's just that somebody has covered this part and somebody has covered that part, and I don't think anybody really got the full picture. But when we bring different things together, I think it becomes something really powerful. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Monica, do you have any thoughts on this or what Jordana just said?
Yeah, well, I definitely, yeah, agree with you, Jordana. I really love what you said, specifically about, the connection and the relationship with nature, and its nature is part, meaning when you sit on those dietas, right, you are with you and nature, right? This is it. It's you and nature, and it's probably just one. So it's there when you feel, I guess, like this consciousness that is unified, right? Through the plants is just a helper on that connection, but it's how the plants um, actually are the helpers in the connection to the earth. I don't know if it makes sense, but um, I love it. Yeah, I love it. It gives me, like, oh, I wish I could do that. Go for 3 months um, to the Amazonian and just do meditation. Probably one day when my kids grow up, I will. Uh,
Yeah.
in the meantime, I do love doing meditation. Yes, and I do love connecting to nature. So I do a lot of walk in nature and singing in nature, and like just going by myself hiking, which is also a really nice practice to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for both, like it's like about connecting with our own intuition, that the thing that is inherently there, but then also the plants. I recently heard this sort of idea that maybe obviously the notion of plant teacher is very common, but what if we actually thought of these plants and mushrooms as our friends instead? And then, like, how do you actually cultivate the relationship then, if you're actually having to show up as an equal part to somebody who also might need something from you, and who might need you to show up and take responsibility to some degree? And I just thought it was a very nice way of looking at it, and sort of put it without putting to the pedestal the plant world, but also just simultaneously giving agency to our human experience and intuition, and the way in which we're guided from the inside, and tapping into our own intuition. So yeah, thank you so much both for those responses. Do you have anything that you want to add to this?
Yeah, so I just love what Monica just said. I want to echo what Monica said and what you said, that the plants are teaching us about the earth. Like the plants, for one, the plants are their connection, their teachers, their allies, so that we can learn the ecological consciousness, so that we can remember and return to that in us, which is nature already, that within us, that is the intelligence of the earth, and that remembers and knows how to organize with this ecological system. And for me, that is the way that we will heal our current ecological crisis, and the problems that we're having as a species finding balance on this planet, is because we've forgotten, we've separated, and we've fragmented off from what is like an ecological unconscious within our own beings that knows how to organize it. And the plants are messengers from the earth that can help us to reconnect into that. And in that, they're not they're not beings to mess around with. They've been here a lot longer than we have.
Mm.
And plant consciousness, plant beings, and plant spirits are way older than humans. And some of them are really friendly, and some of them are really strong, and some of them are tricksters too. And so, they all have their own personality. There's an own world, and we can't go into it with this like human idea of we'll extract the chemical and we'll make it work for us and we'll utilize it. I think that that's actually one of the like challenges of the current psychedelics movement, that there's so much of this medical model of extract the chemical and then we just utilize that. But we lose that when we open into the spirit world, when we open into the non-corporeal dimensions of any kind through expanded states, like it's useful to have helpers there. And some of those helpers that can be with us are plants and the forces of nature, the mountain, the ocean, the stones, and those we have to be in right relationship with those if we want them to support us energetically and spiritually. And so thank you for bringing that in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I love what you just said, and yeah, I think I was just thinking about this word like extractivism. That's just like what humans tend to do. That they just like see something and then they're like, well, what is useful in here? Like, how can I just like take out the best parts and leave the rest? And I do think that we are still um, slightly deluded by that in the psychedelic space as well. And while obviously it's amazing to see this therapeutic movement going forward, it's also like, how can we simultaneously remember that this is not just for us humans to feel better? It's for every single kind of organism to have a more thriving and collaborative and relational existence that is in harmony, in kind of a greater harmony.
I believe that the plants are being self-serving. I asked in a
Mm.
ceremony once, like, why are the plants helping the humans? The humans are so destructive. The plants were like, "Oh, don't get us wrong. Like, this is because we are trying to, we are nature. We are one. The humans are nature. The plants are nature. I wouldn't even know if I would assign that much agency, as much as they're just acting in a organic, self-interested way of we have to heal the web. We have to heal the web. humans have so much fragmentation. I'm not going to say like it's that they're stupid. It's just that we have so much fragmentation internally from ancestral trauma, from collective trauma, that we're not organizing with the whole. And the plants are like, we'll help you because we're helping us to do that too.
Yeah, I love that. The a great Terence McKenna also was always saying that he was working for the mushrooms, and I mean I fully understand that sentiment. It's sometimes it feels like that for me as well. And I guess every organism can be in certain respects to be seen as self-serving. I mean, everything wants to live, and for most things to live, something needs to be consumed and destroyed. So that is the part of existence that is, yeah, the wheel of samsara that we cannot deny. But very interesting to hear your sort of in-depth thoughts and about this, like insights into like what the plants themselves might have to say in this. And that's also something that I've always hoped that we are able to convey in Vital. And that's one of the reasons why we start, or at least in the past couple of years, we've started with more in-depth teaching about indigenous traditions and animistic lenses, because it's like you cannot come into this if you don't have any kind of background in animism and without understanding that each being, whether you perceive it as sentient or not, may just have some kind of spirit or soul that needs to be respected by you. And in order for you to kind of work in this space, you just that's the starting point. At least you have to be able to entertain that idea, even if you cannot fully embrace it.
Definitely, and that is one of the teachings that's more powerful, I find, from shamanism. And it's that connection to everything, and that everything is alive. The rocks, the rocks have a spirit. Everything have a spirits. Everything has something to say, and it's true. It's about communication and how we communicate or how we relate to things. um, I will say also, and I will talk a little bit about my beautiful cannabis sativa. So one teaching that cannabis had give me, and it's very powerful, is that all the plants, of course, it's about this mother connection to all the plants. All the plants are connected. And in one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, ayahuasca told me, remember, all the plants are connected. So then when I went into cannabis, the cannabis can remind me of other plants very easily, and this is how the beauty of working with cannabis in a more gentle way, bring also the spirit of other plants, in a more gentle way, saying again that we are all connected in a way, right? And also about, what you were saying, Jordana, is so true. This is also a teaching that's giving me cannabis, and it's about, we're trying to separate this compound and this other compound. And it's like for cannabis, it's like we're trying to separate all these different cannabinoids, and what's gonna do the CBD, and what's gonna do the CBN and the CBG and THC, all of those. But how if we use them all together, and then just blend them all completely? And the more we have, the more rich we'll become. And that's how cannabis works. And it's something that is still science, it's trying to separate things, but, in a way they work in synergy when they are together, not separated.
There's really something, right, Monica? There's really something about holism, about understanding holism, and that there's a way that that whole system is working together within even the biochemical components of the cannabis. And yes, like because we're in shamanic traditions, then we also understand that there's a deeper essence of that plant. There's a deeper intelligence of that plant. But even chemically, like we have to be careful when we just start isolating components. And I'm not anti-science by any means. Like, I think that things that we've been able to research and what we have been able to isolate and what we have been able to utilize for medicine is amazing. But just remembering that there's a deeper intelligence that emerges from that system of the physical matter of the plant too.
100%. Thank you both. And that is the big problem with the current cannabis industry. I think also it's just like the extremely potent levels of THC, and the kind of cannabis that most people are consuming is yeah, it's I mean, I don't want to be too generalizing, but it is extremely potent, and it has lost a lot of the kind of like natural holistic properties that something that is grown organically would have. And we don't really know how that alters the actual relationship that um, humans are having with cannabis at the moment. So yeah, it's very multifaceted. But yeah, we're kind of approaching an hour, and I know you, Jordana, you have to go at some point soon, and I still have a couple of questions that I would love to ask you both. So I just wanted to kind of throw out this question of like role models and people who have inspired you in your life and also on this medicine path. So yeah, who are the people who you consider to be your role models and who have inspired you? And yeah, how do they inform your work and personal life?
I can start if you want a minute to think, Monica. Um, so role models for me would definitely include Joanna Macy. She'd be one. Joanna Macy's a Buddhist scholar, systems thinker, and ecologist. She was an activist at some point again around nuclear guardianship. And she has a lot of writings and teachings that you can find online. But her work around seeing the intersection of how the ecology and consciousness are working the same by the same principles was really influential for me. So Joanna Macy, Joan Halifax is another one of my heroes.
Mm.
Joan Halifax is a former medical anthropologist who wrote a book called Shamanic Voices. She now is the abbot of Upaya Zen Center. And not only is she also a breathing example of like a engaged spirituality that's grounded in our the the physical reality and our care for people and the planet, but also she is just like such a badass woman that really has stood up in the face of a lot of patriarchal systems that she grew up in, and is just a rock star of a woman. So she's been super inspirational to me. I've read all of her material. Fruitful Darkness is my favorite book of hers. And my grandmother is also on that list. Yeah, my grandmother like grew up in a town of 50 people on the
Wow.
Mississippi River. And I don't know where her wisdom comes from, but it showed me like it really is a direct experience. Like wisdom comes from our direct experience of life because she was not super scholarly. She didn't have access to a lot of education, but it was just through her life and she um, raised her own family. She worked with children after that, and she just like garnered such a brilliancy of her own heart and openness of her own mind through that she's always been such a guide for me too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, you've definitely inspired me to read Joan Halifax now, and yeah, I know the grandmother's wisdom. Where does it come from? It's a good question. If you
Yeah.
think about like comparatively how little experiences most of the women from that generation really had, even in their lives, how little travel they did in comparison, how few places they really got to see, and like how sort of mundane in a lot of ways their lives were focusing on very simplistic things, and yet like there's that real knowing, as you say.
Mhm.
Yeah, what about you, Monica?
So for me, I the first thing I thought when you said who inspired me, it came my mother. My mother immigrated from Venezuela about 5 years ago, and she's living in the US now. And she is going to school every day to study English. And she's
Mm,
just inspired me so much, because she never wanted to leave her country, but it was so hard living there, So now she's living, near me, and she had to adapt to a new culture at 75 years old, and she's doing it. And it's just rocks. It's just inspired me so much. Um, she's making friends. She's, doing all these different activities and going to school. So, yeah, she's my big inspiration. And as I say here, I feel like, oh my God, emotional just to think about it. And I also feel very inspired by my grandmother from my father's side. Someone that I didn't really got connected to when I was a child, but it came a lot during my work with medicines. And she was poor woman, who had 10 kids without a husband. And wow, this is just rocks. So my paternal grandmother, just teaching me so much about, my masculine side and how you can really do it. She had 10 kids without one husband, or, without a male in her house. So yeah, that's teaching me a lot. And also, people who inspire me so much are my clients. They
mm,
just rocks. Just having the courage and the strength to show up for themselves. It's just amazing. I love it. It inspired me to do this work more and more. And of course, my teachers, all my teachers, my amazing teachers, my spiritual teachers, they just inspire me, and so much love to them. Yeah.
wow, 10 kids without a help is that's some next level operation. Wow. Well, thank you both for sharing. And then for the final question of this hour, I wanted to ask you both, like, what excites you in your work at the moment, in what you're doing, and brings you joy and makes you want to get up in the morning.
So I can start. Well, I do have a little family, and I have two girls, two little girls that are the most amazing blessing that I can have in my life. And yeah, I mean, I wake up every day, thinking, okay, let's do the lunch, let's bring them to school. This is my everyday. And yeah, and like I said, also, the work that I am doing on myself, the changes that I have seen, taking place in my marriage, in my family, in my life, in my friendships. Um, this is it, this is what keep me going. The more I see the changes in my life, the more I want to do this work, the more I want to teach people, and I want to show people that this is possible. So yeah, this is really what keep me going. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah. What about you, Jordana?
That's beautiful, Monica. I feel pretty similarly on what is most exciting about the work is, every day, every week is a new world, and it's a new opportunity, it's new growth. I feel very lucky that, every day is so completely different as I continue to open up layers of myself, and challenges come, and And sure, I complain about them quite a bit, but it's like opportunities. It's always opportunities to open into something that I've never done before, and that's really exciting for me. Um, I'm also really, I have a few different threads that are just consistent excitements for me around deepening communication with the plants, deepening listening with the earth, learning how to do that inside of myself so that I can receive the guidance from the plants and from the earth. And then sharing with other people, how do we all do that? Like, how do we do that as a collective for the sake of all of us and for the future generations? So that's, a consistent part of my explorations. I'm also right now really interested in the collective and weaving community, and I feel like, it's July right now, July 2024, for those that listen to this in a future time. Like, we have the election coming up in a few months, and I feel like a thread of right now we're starting to prepare, like, the people in my community, in my expanded community. How do we start to prepare ourselves for this time in the United States where there's going to be a lot happening in the collective consciousness, that regardless of what side you're on, it's like a very potent collective event. And we're already starting to see, like, a lot of opinions, a lot of polarization, and it's really important for us as practitioners to be able to stay in our neutrality and in our balance, in our witnessing perspective, so that we can see clearly, so that we can work with our clients in a helpful way still, so that we're not just adding to the fight. And I think that connecting with each other and community is a really important part of that. And having these circles where we may use the cannabis, or where we may be singing or using other plant medicines or whatever people may be doing to connect together as a resource, and know that as we walk this journey where there's going to be a lot of unknown moments, like what happens in November in the United States, that we are continuing to live our values that we derive from a deeper place. So that's kind of
Mm.
on my mind right now, is like what's going to happen in the coming months as we go through that election.
Thank you both. Yes, I couldn't agree more, Jordana, about the community. I think I spent many years from my early 20s being on this very sort of Jungian frame of like, no, it's all about the individual. I mean, not that Jungian psychology is about the individual, but a lot of it is about individual work, and the focus is kind of there. And the older I'm getting, I'm all about like, you know what? You just put people together, like-minded people, and that is healing. That is the medicine in itself. And you know, sometimes you don't even need the plants. Sometimes the community is the medicine, and the integration is happens just by being with the right people. And yeah, it's amazing to be able to see Vital grow and expand, and to get to know so many incredible people from all around the world who are joining this movement, because it's just so hopeful. It's like the only thing that really gives me hope from day to day, and to see this kind of passion and inspiration and drive that people have. And yeah, I guess that's what we must focus on, the light that is there. So I know we're already a little bit over time. You have to go very soon, Jordana. Do you either one of you have any closing remarks before we round off this wonderful discussion?
Thank you so much, Johanna, and the Vital team for bringing this conversation together. I've really enjoyed getting to meet you, Monica. I've really enjoyed getting to hear some of your perspectives too, Johanna, and what makes you excited with the Vital program. I think it's a beautiful thing what you're doing to bring people together in this movement. And we're really just finding this movement is finding its way so much, and really deep integrity and the guidance in this movement, and like deep integrity of the leadership, I feel is really important. So I just, really like want to thank both of you for the work that you're doing, and I hope that we can continue to like hold a space of integrity for the healing of the planet, and not, all the different distractions that people can get into when it comes to business.
Thank you. What about you, Monica?
Yes. Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you, Jordana. It was a pleasure to meet you too. And, thank you for all your sharings, both of you. I definitely am very grateful as well with psychedelics today and the Vital program. It teach me a lot. It also helped me to go in the journey where I am now. So very beautiful, the community. um, I also working on building the community at Holistic Therapeutics, and it's it's work that is done through relationships to building communities that are strong, and people that want to do this work as well. So it's challenging, but it's beautiful at the same time. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so happy that we managed to get together. And yeah, David was supposed to be initially hosting this podcast, but when he said that who were the guests, I was like, yes, I will 100% do it. I'm so excited for that. So thank you. It was really lovely to get to know both of you a little bit more. And I know I will see more of you in the future, hopefully also in person one day with you, Jordana. And yeah, see you again, Monica. We got to see each other in Amsterdam at ICPR recently. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I guess we're gonna end here. So yeah, I wish you both a lovely day, and maybe you can